At the beginning, we see an alternate universe's Earth, where it is the year 1990. Here, Michelle is watching her younger brother Chris take an elite exam with their parents. In fact, Chris was far more intelligent than others his age. He could answer questions that even top professors hadn't been able to solve yet. Even today, he finishes his university exams in half the allotted time. Outside, he tells his sister Michelle how easy the test was. However, he was still uncertain about his own future. Because of his intelligence, he was directly selected for college. Although Chris wanted to attend school with kids his own age, Michelle explained to him, "Someone as smart and extraordinary as you shouldn't be afraid. One day, your intelligence will change the world." So, following his sister's advice, Chris finally agreed to enroll in college. But they had no idea that after today, the world would change completely. Large robots, which people had built for personal use, suddenly all gained consciousness. Under the leadership of one robot leader, they declared war against humans so they could live as they wished. They no longer wanted to work for humans. News started coming in from everywhere that robots, big and small, were rebelling. They took to the streets all over the world, causing chaos. The president issued a warning that if they didn't return to work, the army would be deployed against them. Despite such warnings, the situation kept getting worse. And so, a war broke out between robots and humans. Since robots were stronger than humans, even the army couldn't do anything against them. After a long war that lasted 2 years, when humanity was on the verge of defeat, a famous scientist changed everything. He invented a technology that allowed humans to defeat the robots. This technology was called the neuromachine. With it, any person could connect themselves to an empty robot body through a device and use it as their own body. Since these drone bodies had no consciousness, they couldn't fight without a human controlling them. Someone had to control them at all times. After this invention, soldiers were able to easily overpower the robots, and within a few weeks, they captured almost all of them. Then, a peace treaty was signed between the robot leader and the president, stating that no robot could enter human territory anymore. In this way, all the robots were imprisoned beyond a wall in a barren desert. They could no longer approach humans, and humans couldn't go to them either. The tasks that these robots used to do were now easily handled by humans using the neuromachine. However, the entire social system changed. People could control these machines from anywhere, making their work much easier. 2 years later, we see Michelle again. By now, the whole world has changed. Every student in Michelle's class can use the neuromachine to study, as well as do other tasks. But Michelle herself didn't like this invention at all. She felt that machines could never replace the real-life skills and experiences of humans. That's why she was sent to the principal today. Despite the teacher's instructions, Michelle still hasn't started using the neuromachine, which the government has made mandatory for everyone. However, the principal was sympathetic toward Michelle. 4 years ago, her parents' younger brother Chris died in an accident. After that, Michelle was adopted by someone named Tim. But now, Tim doesn't keep track of what Michelle is doing or not doing. Instead, he spends all day absorbed in the neuromachine. That day, after Michelle came home, memories of the past started coming back to her. She remembered the day her younger brother Chris finished a very difficult exam in half the allotted time. But on their way home that day, a deer suddenly appeared in front of their car. Because of that, they had an accident and lost consciousness in the hospital. Michelle later learned that she was the only one in her family who survived. Thinking about all this, Michelle fell asleep. But a noise from outside woke her up. She peeked out the window and saw that a robot had entered the house. Yes, those same robots who had become humanity's greatest enemies so far. So she quickly tried to wake up her father's team from the neuromachine. But meanwhile, the robot had already entered the room Michelle. To escape, she took shelter under the table. But eventually, the robot found Michelle hiding there. Michelle grabbed a knife and warned the robot to stay away from her. Now she realizes that the robot isn't trying to harm her. Instead, it's actually trying to explain something to her. Then, the robot opens up its own brain to show Michelle so that it can communicate. When Michelle repairs its brain, the robot starts explaining everything to her, that it is actually her younger brother Chris, who is still alive. At first, Michelle doesn't believe what it says, because it should be impossible for her brother to still be alive. Meanwhile, the noise from their conversation brings Tim to the room. When he sees the robot in Michelle's room, he assumes that Michelle must have been hiding the robot there. So, he starts arguing with Michelle, because if the government finds out that they've been hiding a robot in their house, they could end up in prison for life. Michelle tries to explain to Tim that the robot isn't hers, but Tim doesn't listen and, in his anger, pushes her down. Seeing this, Chris's robot gets angry and attacks Tim, but Tim also fights back against the robot. Then he starts to call the police to have the robot arrested. However, before he can say anything on the phone, Michelle shocks him from behind with electricity, knocking him unconscious, because she has realized that the robot is actually her brother Chris. After that, the two of them leave the room, but before starting the car, the robot accidentally breaks the heel of Michelle's shoe. Michelle asks Chris, "Where are you now? And how did you survive that accident?" Chris says that his body is trapped in a secret lab, the location of which he himself does not know. When he got the chance to connect himself to the robot, he used the robot's help to come to Michelle. However, he knows about a doctor named Aman, through whom they can find out the location of Chris's real body. This doctor treated Michelle after the accident. He knew what had happened to Chris. But he lied to Michelle, telling her that Chris had died, so now they have to find him first. He is now imprisoned with the robot in a restricted area. This is that place. The government has locked up all the robots there, and people are forbidden to go. But to rescue her brother, she sets out to go there with Chris's robot. As they travel together, they realize that because of the neuromachine, people have completely forgotten about real life. Many people have even fallen into comas due to excessive use of the machines. Without their brains, the rest of their bodies have lost all functionality. But Michelle has never used neuronation. Anyway, the robot reached the boundary of the restricted zone, and they were looking for a way to get inside. As soon as they saw a truck approaching, they hid behind a box. Then they saw someone named Kit get out of the truck, who had come here for a secret meeting. After a while, a robot arrived there. Actually, Kit had come to sell an old antique pistol he had. But as soon as the man got the pistol, he didn't want to pay Kit. Because he already had the pistol, and since Kit was there alone, he could easily kill him and escape. But he didn't know that Kit was prepared for this from the start. As soon as the neuromachine tagged the pistol, a robot came from the back of the truck and destroyed him. Meanwhile, Michelle and Chris, hiding behind the box, watched all of this in astonishment. Keeping intelligent robots is now banned on Earth. But even so, how did Kit manage to get such a robot? After the robot destroyed the man, Kit thanked the robot. Then the two of them loaded the robot onto the truck together. Meanwhile, Michelle and Chris sneaked into the truck from behind, so they could get closer to the robot's area. But they didn't notice that another robot had been watching everything all this time. This robot was being controlled from the base by a soldier named Marshall. Seeing Kit's truck, he realized where Michelle and Chris were headed. Kit was driving the truck with the robot Herman, unaware that Michelle and Chrisone, of whom is a robot, were hiding in the back of his truck. "He's so much stronger than me, Herman. Why do you want me to help you if he is?" He goes to his spot and starts taking out the broken neuromachine and some other items from Herman, which he plans to sell to his robot to reduce some of the cost. Suddenly, they hear Michelle's voice from inside the truck. Then, he and the robot Herman together catch Michelle and Chris. Michelle tells him the truth that they need to get inside the restricted area to meet Dr. M, which is where Kit is headed. They ask him to take them along. Kit then explains to them that the place is extremely dangerous. It's very difficult for humans to get in there, so he can't take them with him. But Michelle refuses to accept this. She says she must find her brother's body. While they're arguing about this, suddenly they sense someone outside. Kit quickly pulls out his pistol, ready to defend himself. It turns out to be Marshall and the robot, who had been following Michelle and Chris. Marshall announces to everyone that there are two robots here, Herman with Kit and Chris with Michelle. He orders them to surrender their weapons and hand over the robots to the government. Kit and Michelle pretend to surrender at first, hoping their robots can attack Marshall from behind and disable his machine. But Marshall is very clever. He figures out their plan and he starts fighting with the two robots, and Kit and Michelle realize that they won't be able to stop Marshall, so they begin to escape from there. But Marshall attacks them from behind, and another fight breaks out between the two. Their rampage causes the entire building to start collapsing. Kit and Michelle, along with their robots, somehow manage to escape from the building. Afterward, Kit gets very angry at Michelle because it was her fault that Marshall found their hideout. Michelle then tells him that she's doing all of this for her brother Chris, so she has to go to that structure zone. She has to meet Dr. Amer, and for that she's ready to take any risk. Hearing Michelle's words, Kit agrees to help her. Then he activates his biggest robot and gets inside it to start entering the restricted area. This robot was much bigger than Herman's, which Herman could control from inside. After that, we see the scientist Ethan. He's the one who created the neuromachine that helped people win wars. Now, he's trying to invent a new technology, but even after 100 attempts, it's still not working. Two of his juniors report to him that the data source they're using for the technology is slowing down. Hearing this, he gets even angrier, because without it, the neuromachines will become useless. And here comes the biggest twist. In reality, this data source is none other than Michelle's brother, Chris, who is still in a coma. Ethan has connected him to a machine so that he can use his intelligence, allowing his brain to be utilized for making new discoveries. That means, from the very beginning, the neuromachines that help people win wars, that too was created using Chris's brain. Since Chris, by using that technology, has gone over to Michelle through another robot, Ethan can no longer fully utilize his brain power. That's why they need to bring Chris's robot back as soon as possible so that Ethan can make full use of his brain power again. In fact, Ethan meets with Marshall and tells him to capture Chris's robot. That's why Marshall was following Michelle and Chris's robot. And for this job, Ethan promises Marshall a high-level government promotion. Besides, by collaborating with humans, his company has now become the most influential company in the world. So, with the help of the big robot, Michelle and Kit enter that zone, and as soon as they go inside, the robots inside attack them. And they capture them and take them to their leader. This is the same robot leader who made a deal with the president during the war. The leader tells them that sometimes many humans enter this area. Many robot parts have been stolen by humans. That's why they attack people for their own protection. But they don't want to harm them. Then Michelle tells the leader the whole truth, that she hasn't come to harm the robots. Rather, she's here to meet Dr. Irma, so that they can find her brother's body. Hearing this, the robot leader is surprised. Wondering what scientist Ethan is doing with the child's brain, he further says that Ethan has helped their M-robot a lot. That's why they have given him shelter among them, and for his safety, he cannot reveal his location to anyone. Hearing this, Michelle becomes very disappointed. She goes outside and keeps thinking about her brother. At that moment, another robot comes to Michelle and tells her that it once stayed with the doctor and gives Michelle a clue about their location. The robot leader arrives there and agrees to help them because the doctor wanted to meet with the head of the M-robots. After that, they take her to the doctor's facility, but they didn't know that Marshall and the Neuro Machine had followed them all the way here. After several hours of driving, they finally arrive at Dr. M's facility. But when they get there, they see that everything has been destroyed. Seeing this, they ready their weapons and move forward cautiously. Suddenly, many robots surround them from all sides. In fact, this was Dr. M's setup so that no one could easily find him. But when he sees Chris's robot, he calms his robots down. Now Michelle runs to the doctor and asks him why he lied to her and where her brother's real body is now. Then Dr. M begins to tell her the whole story. He says that when the war between humans and robots was happening, he found Chris. Even after the accident, Chris was still alive. And while operating on Chris, he realized that Chris's brain was far more advanced than that of an ordinary human. When the scientist Ethan found out about this, he created a machine that could utilize Chris's brain without killing him. And through this, Ethan created the Neuro Machine, which helped humans win against the robots. But ordinary people knew nothing about Chris, so he lied to Michelle and the others, saying that Chris had died in the accident. Dr. M further says that 13 months after the incident, Chris regained consciousness. Chris realized that Ethan was using his brain for his own benefit. They used his brain to create the Neuro Machine. At that point, Chris asked Dr. M for help. Out of remorse, Dr. M helped him. And that's how Chris became connected to that robot. Since the robot was far from their facility, Chris didn't know which facility his body was being held in. Dr. M connected Chris's brain to that robot and escaped from the facility, because if Ethan found him, he would kill him. Then Michelle angrily asks, "So where is Chris's body now?" Dr. M replies, "Chris's body is being held in Ethan's most secure lab, and to free Chris, you'll have to go there." While they were talking, Marshall arrives outside. As soon as he enters, he realizes that Dr. M, who betrayed Ethan and escaped, is hiding here. Then the robot leader starts fighting Marshall himself to save everyone else, while the others try to escape from the back. But then, more soldiers arrive. Marshall has brought his entire team. A fierce battle breaks out between the two groups. At one point, Marshall defeats the robot leader. Then Dr. M steps forward to prevent Marshall from taking Chris's robot. At that moment, a robot comes from behind and kills Dr. M and starts taking Chris's robot captive. He tells Michelle, "Go home and forget everything that happened these past few days. If you tell anyone outside, the consequences won't be good." After that, Chris's robot is taken to the main lab, where, "Sir, the real body has been kept here." Of course, seeing all this, Marshall felt a bit bad, realizing how unjustly Ethan was treating a young child. Ethan tells Chris's robot that by connecting with the robot, he has caused a lot of trouble. Now that they have managed to capture him, they will be able to use the full power of Chris's brain. When the dark side of Ethan's words prevails, Marshall says that he may be a bad person, but doing this to children is absolutely wrong. At that moment, Ethan reminds him, if he hadn't done all this, then soldiers like Marshall would have died in the war 4 years ago, and humans would have become slaves to the robots. So his experiments have actually protected human civilization. That's why no one should come to teach him about morality. And since Marshall is just a junior officer, his job is to follow orders. Meanwhile, the robots bypass everything and destroy the entire structure. Their leader was severely injured, but he's still alive. Kate tells Mitchell not to be upset and says they will go straight to Ethan's lab to rescue Chris. Some robots are more emotional than humans. At first he fought against his own robots, During the battle, when he was injured, a robot named Harman saved his life. And that's when he realized that not all robots are bad, they actually want to live together with humans. They don't want to be slaves, they were only fighting for their freedom. So after the war, he keeps Harman with him, and they continue to work together. Then, from Dr. M's personal computer, they learn how Chris's brain is being used. Through this, they discover the neuromachine, and with its help, they manage to defeat the robots. If they can somehow disconnect the machine from Chris's brain, the neuromachine will shut down. There, Kitar, along with Mitchell and the rest of the robot army, was present. They knew that to defeat Ethan, they had to disconnect the machine from Chris's brain. If they did, all the technology here would become useless. So, everyone set out together with the intention of attacking Ethan's facility. The next day, while the experiment on Chris was underway, Kitar and Harman started creating distractions from outside. Just as all the guards were about to catch them, at that moment, Mitchell slipped past everyone's eyes and reached his brother. At that point, along with Harman, many robots began attacking there. A fierce battle broke out between them and all the machines on guard. Amidst this, Mitchell made his way to Chris's robot. Meanwhile, when Ethan learned that many robots were attacking from outside, he brought out his newly invented special technology. It was a gigantic robot called 1-0, which only he could control. This robot was enormous and extremely powerful. These robots couldn't do anything to it. Seeing this situation, Marshall decided not to fight against Ethan anymore, because he realized he had been fighting for the wrong side. Meanwhile, Mitchell reached his brother and connected with him, entering a digital world. There, Chris was very despondent. Although his body wasn't functioning, and he had been in a coma for many years, it was through his brain that so much destruction had been caused in the world. So for someone like him, it would be best if he died. He then told his sister to go outside and unplug his brain from the machine so that he would die, and all the machines connected to his brain would become inoperative. Shutting everything down was the only way, and in this way he would also find release. Even though his body wasn't functioning, he had already spent his last few days with his sister, so he had no more desires left. Michelle agreed to his words and went outside. She then unplugged her brother's brain, and as soon as the brain disconnects, all the robots begin to break down one by one, becoming helpless. At that moment, the robot leader approaches Ethan and strikes a final deal. Meanwhile, through Michelle, the entire world learns the shocking truth how Ethan had been using a child's brain all along to carry out countless dark deeds. Michelle reveals to everyone how the neuromachines were making humans increasingly powerless and disconnected from real life. But today, because of her brother's sacrifice, those machines will no longer function. Now humanity must return to its natural way of life, and the robots must be set free so that both can live together in harmony. And thus, the war between humans and robots comes to an end, marking the conclusion of the movie.